Welcome to Resilience Living Podcast. I'm your host, Terralyn Minifield, excited for another opportunity to talk about all things resilient. Today, I have a family friend that we have in the studio. We call him our family scientist, and we're going to talk all things about science, his business, and just the whole evolution of what happens when you're building your own business and all of the good things you can do for other people. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you. His name is Sanjeev Javia. Welcome, Jeevers.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So excited for people to get to know you. We have known you in our family since the beginning of the 2000s, I think.
Yeah.
And just what a journey it's been as far as all of the things that you were involved in. So for those that don't know you, please introduce yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Sanjeev Javia. Everybody calls me Jeevers. And so that's kind of my nickname. And yeah, we got to know each other almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it was the very start of essentially my career.
Okay.
And that career was in nutrition, wellness, in the science side of nutrition, so formulation, because the company that we were together in was the first nutritional supplement company that I started. And that just kind of set off a train in which I just continued that journey and will continue that journey for the life of my, not just career, but just my sense of purpose, because I think I've found exactly what I'm supposed to do to, as you mentioned earlier, is how can you make a difference out there? I think this is the talents and ability that I've been given to do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So going back a little bit about you, are you a native of Arizona?
No, so I grew up really in Michigan.
Okay.
So grew up in Michigan, went to school there at the University of Michigan. My parents came from India and settled in Alabama, actually, because my dad was actually doing some schooling there.
Okay.
I was born in Alabama, Opelika, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Opelika, Alabama. And then again, moved to Michigan, did my school in Michigan, my undergrad stuff at least, and then went from there to San Francisco, started my first business in San Francisco that was completely separate from nutrition and wellness and such. It was in technology, and then went from San Francisco to Denver. And Denver is where I really got into nutrition, wellness, started my first nutritional supplement company there, and then came out here to Arizona because my sister and family are here about 10 years ago. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So speaking of starting your own company, because, a lot of people work for other companies, but you said you started a company. What inside you drives you to start a company?
Yeah. So I think the earlier ones, especially the first one, just kind of happened by chance, to tell you. Honestly, it was a group of guys. There was 4 of us who were basically avoiding grad school. Like I was heading to med school.
Okay.
There were another 2 guys that were going to law school and another one that was going to business school. And we had all graduated from Michigan, and we took a year off. And in that year off, we ended up working for a good friend's father that had a Yellow Page company. And so I know a lot of people don't use Yellow Pages anymore, but Yellow Pages was a big thing back then. But and we just, that was kind of the beginning of individuals using the internet as a way to look for businesses. So I won't go in the whole long story, but essentially we were like, okay, well, all of this data is already available. All we have to do is just throw it on the internet, make it pretty, make it searchable, and we could create kind of like an online Yellow Page directory database. And so we were like, hey, let's do that. And we did it. And we just were fooling around with it a bit, and it ended up kind of taking off there in Michigan and had a really great relevancy and concept to it. And so San Francisco or the, West Coast was where all technology was kind of happening. So if you were going to do something, in that space, you'd probably want to go to the West Coast, right?
Okay.
So that's why we ended up in San Francisco, because that was kind of like the tech capital of the US. And we went out there and kept building it, and it grew and grew and grew. And then it just kind of grew to a place where we were like, I don't think we want to go to grad school. This is just going really well. So I'm just trying to say is that just kind of happened organically, naturally, right? And I would say, by the way, that most of my deals are that way.
That's what I'm experiencing in your life, as far as things just automatically come together.
Yes.
And so you are the common denominator in those things. What about you makes it come together?
I think that you have to have the availability to do it. So here's the thing, okay, right? I know I watch it. I watch all that stuff on Instagram and, read those books about, building businesses and who builds businesses and kind of this serial entrepreneur. People will say, they'll be like, oh, you're a serial entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. I will say that I am not that I'm not that deliberate about being an entrepreneur. And that's kind of, and to be honest, when I talk to some of my other friends who are also starting businesses or have their own business, a lot of them weren't necessarily being deliberate about saying, I want to start a business. And I'm going to start this business and I'm going to be a businessman and I'm going to work for myself and I'm going to be the CEO. I don't want to work for anybody else. You hear that sort of stuff, but I'm just trying to say that that's not necessarily me. Okay, right? It was something, I would get into something and I'm like, wow, that's a really great idea. Like, I love being part of that. I could get super passionate about it. And so, you know what, like, let's just do it and kind of see what happens. And here's the deal. Like, you always hear of the successes, but you don't hear of any of the failures.
True.
No one's going to bring up their failures, right? But most of them are quote unquote failures. They don't go the way that they were laid out in your head, if you will. Okay. Right. And that's because of the fact that, you're never really starting a business. You're just trying to kind of, nurture a passion. And hopefully that nurturing of that passion is something that is so relevant and exciting and attractive for other people that they would say, wow, like, I want to start using that, or I want to start taking that, or I want to use that service. Now, here's the deal. No question that every business gets to a point where, you need to have deliberate business people.
Sure.
Okay,
absolutely.
right? Because if you don't, then what ends up happening is that you end up building something that's not sustainable. Because it doesn't have the proper margins and it doesn't have the proper, focused marketing, that it doesn't have the right operations on what you should be spending money in and whatnot. And so it does definitely get to that point, right? And I'm saying that probably after, maybe 7 or 8 businesses that I've kind of been involved in or whatever. And after, 22 years of doing business like this, that I'm just getting familiar with that space of because here's the thing, you can't know everything.
Right.
And I would say that those individuals that actually know the least amount, meaning that they are more focused in one area, are oftentimes way more successful than an individual who tries to learn a little bit about everything.
Got it.
Because you just need to have trust in other people. And I'm not saying I'm the best at this, but having trust at other people to kind of say, you can handle the marketing.
Got it.
You can handle the operations. You can handle the, distribution, right? But if you kind of try to learn a little bit about everything, it takes you off of your focus and it just doesn't go as fast.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. So when we talk about having failures, you said there's 7 or 8 and 22 years behind your experience. When you talk about having failures, what about that failure picks you up to evolve to the next business?
The only thing that allows you to do that is because you have a passion for the next in business, whatever it is. Because here's the thing is that failure isn't bad. Failure isn't bad.
Okay.
In the sense that it's not failing that sucks.
Okay.
It's the journey to failure that sucks.
That's clear.
Okay.
Got it.
You don't,
okay.
If you just fail and it's over, you can get over that.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Uh-huh.
What is really hard to get over is that before you fail, that where you got to close the doors.
Right.
There's months and months of suffering
right.
that you went through.
Right.
And see, that's what really crushes someone.
Okay.
It's the months and the years and the days to the point that you actually failed, which you can lose your enthusiasm, your excitement, your passion, your sense of purpose, all that sort of, you just get drained because of the journey to failure.
Right.
So I always tell people, I say, listen, if you want to be successful, you got to learn how to suffer. You got to learn how to suffer and be okay with suffering. And the only thing that allows you to be okay with suffering is that you've got such a passion and desire for what you're doing.
Got it.
And that's why whatever business that you're doing, and listen, I got a good friend. He's one of my best friends. He's out there in Michigan. And you know what they do is they purchase businesses. Doesn't matter what business it is. They purchase businesses and they try to turn them around.
Okay.
I would not be able to do that because I need to be super passionate about the business because that's what allows me to deal with the suffering.
Got it.
Right? Now I would imagine that for them, what their passion is being able to revitalize businesses and turn them around. So they don't care if they own a trucking company or if they own a lab company or if they own a whatever. It's their passion for turning this thing around and flipping. And that's awesome, right? I don't have that passion. My passion is the product or the benefit that service or product is doing. That's what I got to get into. So anyways, the whole net of this is that you got to love what you're actually doing because most of the time you're going to have to go through some level of suffering because it's not going to go well. And the only thing that's going to allow you to endure is that passion for what you're doing. And by the way, that's also what makes it okay when you fail. Because when you fail and it doesn't work for whatever reason, you can at least say, I loved what I was doing.
Got it.
I really felt that what I had was going to make a huge difference. And it was, and it did. And it maybe not made a huge difference in, a million people's lives to sustain the business, but it helped 5, it helped 20, it helped 30, it helped myself. And it just doesn't, business is so out of your control. The success, and that's another thing. You hear this all the time with, you can build your own destiny, drive your own destiny, I just don't see that. I really don't. You can I have worked my butt off.
Right.
I've worked my butt off and still it didn't work out.
Got it.
I haven't worked my butt off as much. And it went really, really well.
Right.
And that's because I'm just one piece of the puzzle.
Got it.
The universe literally has to put a lot of things in place that are out of your control for you to be really successful for most of us. Every once in a while, maybe it doesn't happen. But I would say that just in my experience and just what I have done and what I've seen, hey, listen, I am one piece of the puzzle. I got to let the universe put a lot of other things together. And while they're putting those things together, I'm going to have to keep working so that when it does come together, I'm ready for it, right? That's that whole kind of thing about preparation or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's basically saying, okay, listen, you know what? I'm going to build the best products. I'm going to have the right messaging. I'm going to have the right assets to build the credibility. I'm going to have the right processes for distribution so that if all of a sudden somebody calls me and says, hey, I'm Sally whoever, and I control 50 stores and I'm able to get you in all 50 of these stores. Are you ready tomorrow? I can say, yeah, I'm ready tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But I was ready last week,
Right.
but nobody ever called me.
Got it.
So that's what you got to do is you got to just do everything that you possibly can so that when
time comes,
you're ready.
For it. So let me ask you a little bit more about your passion, because that's your driving force. Just like you said, in the midst of dealing with failure, the reason why you're able to is because of the passion. When you just say passion, what exactly are you talking about your passion? I mean, you are really good in the wellness industry. You formulate product, but what makes that passionate for you?
Yeah. So I am so fortunate because the space that I'm in makes it really easy for you to be passionate.
Well, okay.
Right? Because here's the thing is that what I do is I try to build things, meaning formulations, dietary supplements, skincare, whatever. Okay. Right? To drive the benefit of health so somebody can live a better day today than the day before.
Okay.
Now, if you can't get passionate about that work, I don't know what you could get passionate about. I mean, if you really think, you basically are saying every day what you're doing is trying to make someone else's life better.
Right.
That's life wasn't better before.
Right.
Right? So it's like it's such a easy thing for me to get excited about my work.
Got it.
Because you're literally trying to make someone else's life better. And fortunately for me, because of some of the spaces that I was in, you get to see that firsthand. You get to see the suffering that people are dealing with firsthand. And then you get to also see the benefit that they received when they got your product or used your product or whatever. And so that just makes you even more excited about the work that you're doing because you're saying to yourself, gosh, I'm fortunate. I don't, suffer from a lot of the issues that other individuals have.
Sure.
So I say to myself, wow, I would love for them to feel as good as I do, because I'm also very conscious about how good I feel. I'm also very aware of the situation that I'm in. And so because I'm so aware of the situation that I'm in and I'm constantly reminding myself of the situation that I'm in, I then want other people to be in that same situation.
Got it. That's good. That's very key what you're saying there. So when it comes to success, is success just for the individual that uses your product that has a better quality of life? Or is success the monetary things that come with having a great product that the market accepts? What does success look like for you?
Yeah. So success is me doing my best work.
Okay.
That's it. Because all of that other stuff that you mentioned, one, a lot of it is out of my control.
Right.
And two, it doesn't really matter because if I make a bunch of money and I am not doing my best work, then at the very end of the day, I will know that I'm not doing my best work.
Right.
So what's the money for? The money is not an indication of who I am. And I guess maybe that's something important to realize too, is that, as you get, older and you kind of understand the narrative of life and you understand, what's important and things like that, nothing really matters except for your your understanding of what you're doing, right? And I also am very quick to make sure that none of those things don't infiltrate that space of value for me, because that stuff is fleeting, right? Like that stuff is, you have to be careful if all of a sudden you want to. Well, I'm not saying anybody. I'm saying for me, I'm very careful in basing my value on the things that are non-internal. So I don't base my value on whether it's something like money or whether it's even a comment that somebody has about my product.
Okay.
Like if somebody says, hey, I took your product and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It actually made me sick. It made me feel worse. I'd say, okay. It's still an insanely awesome product.
right.
It just didn't work for you.
Right.
And that's okay. But I'm not going to base the value of that product based on your comment or your experience. Right? And so, because that would leave me, right, susceptible to, things that I don't control.
Exactly. So that's good. That's good. So with the things that you don't control, when you're talking about having people that maybe have more levels of insight as far as marketing or experts in their particular thing that come together as a team, how do you know when you have the right team around you?
That's a great question. And I'm not the best necessarily at creating the best team. I'm not the best at two things. I'm not the best at creating a team, and that's right. And then number two, realize that, necessarily, maybe even building the right culture for a team. Okay. Right. I think there's other people that are better, and I get it. I'm more of my good friend. I think of her as a general. Mm-hmm. She's great at that. She's great at building a team, understanding people, giving them, the space that they need. And I'm more of an assassin. I'm a guy that you put on a project and
you kill it.
And I'll kill it. And I'll pretty much do everything to get that thing done. Okay. Right. And then here's another issue is that this, and I think you'll hear this from other business people as well. I mean, when I get around other of my friends who are in this, we gripe about the same stuff. Okay. Right. And probably the number one thing that we gripe about is the fact that why doesn't other people take the responsibility and the personal agency to, do the things that are required to do to create success. Okay. Right. And that's because that's 1% of the population, maybe 0.5% of the population. Okay. Right. And you can't hire all the 0.5% of the population. There's only so much of them. Okay. Right. And so therefore generals are really awesome because they're the ones that are able to deal with truly the masses. Right. And so, I mean, basically what I've realized is that, I'm not necessarily going to just free up everything in certain areas. Okay. Right. Because I'm a product formulator. Okay. Right. I make sure that nobody knows better the product, the benefits, what people are saying about. I mean, I do a lot of work in that specific area. Okay. So if you want to say that you know how to market my product better than I do, it's going to be really hard for me to kind of understand that only because of the work that I do to understand it. Right? Now, on the distribution level and on the operations and all that sort of stuff, no question, accounting, I don't know anything about that sort of stuff per se. Okay. Right. But I think a good leader basically just knows the right questions to ask because that's where you're going to make up the difference for somebody who may not be as committed to the process as you are. And you can't blame them because they don't live and die by the business.
True.
I mean, every day, in essence, in my head, I'm like, hey, listen, if this doesn't work, I'm going down. Okay. Right.
Right.
But nobody else feels that way. And you know what? I don't want them to feel that way because that's a tremendous amount of stress. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. But the thing is that if I ask the right questions, then I'm going to be able to make up for the fact that when they don't have that, extra, effort that they put into whatever work that it is, if you will. You know what I mean? Right. So, I mean, listen, I wish I would be able to tell you, hey, I'm a great team builder and, you find the right person. But I think it's one of those things, like for me, at least, is that, I try to say I can build the best team by being the best demonstration of what they could, the best demonstration, so they can always say, well, gosh, Jeevers, he's working his butt off. Right. Gosh, Jeevers, he's putting in the extra time and the effort. He's really hustling. Let me spend a little bit more extra time in this than maybe I would. I think that's one thing I try to do. And then the second thing that I try to do is just make sure that they're rewarded for the work that they do. They're recognized for the work that they do, and they're rewarded. And what I've learned too is that reward for most people has less to do with compensation and has more to do with having the autonomy, having the responsibility, being able to kind of say, you know what, this is my project. I'm quick to say, hey, listen, man, your project, you go do it and report back after, a quarter or however long it is. And here's what you and I can expect from it. And then if it doesn't work that way, then it's not going to be a surprise to you that, maybe we should do something different.
Right. So what you're saying all makes sense. It's amazing because there's a level of accountability that you've given yourself to show up being the best, doing the best, and being the example for others to follow you. That's extraordinary. And I don't think that people have a lot of insight to every day make that decision to show up. And then there's a level of gratitude in which you speak from, that that you're fortunate, that you're grateful, not only to have the insight and intelligence that you have to be a product developer, but also the insight of knowing that everything isn't everything, meaning that you're not going to die if things don't work out well, but you're just going to keep showing up and trying to make things work better. So this is your business world. Does this type of attitude translate in everything that you do?
Yeah, because, they have that, oh, this is just business or personal, whatever. I don't understand that either. You know what I mean? Right? I don't understand how you can't take the behavioral traits that you have in your personal life to your business, how you separate them, because it's still people, it's still purposes, it's still initiatives, it's still all that. And so, and you spend, most of your life, from at least, 20 to, 50 or 60, doing business. Right. I mean, you spend 8 hours of your day, 9 hours of your day, 10 hours of your day doing business. So you're trying to say that you're going to be one way for 10 hours a day, and then you're going to be different for 4 hours a day because you got to sleep too. You know what I mean? Right. And so, and remember, the body is a dumb machine. So you train it. You tell it what to do. And as you consistently do those things, you essentially create the wiring so that it can do them from a subconscious level, right? From an involuntary level. Right. So if you're doing something for 8-10 hours and you're doing it consistently, you're going to train your body to think that way, to do those. And so you can't change it. It's silly to think that, right? And so yeah, this goes into my personal life as well too. I'm still driven. I'm still super intense. I'm still, quick to, like understand what's important, what's not important, and yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've known and watched your life from afar for many years, and I know that you're very loyal. You have friends and your friendships go deep. And even talking to you, I can understand why, because you don't change. You grow, but you don't change.
Yeah.
And that makes the difference. And that allows you to be this sustainable force that just continues to keep going and keep having all these wonderful products. So what does the future look like for you? I mean, you have this constant drive for wellness. I mean, company after company I've seen you go through. What is the end goal for you as far as business?
Yeah, I think as far as business, just the goal is just to keep innovating and to developing and growing on the last, from yesterday, right? Just building great products, trying to affect more and more people, the best way that you can. Realizing that education is really what is most important, has less to do with products and services, has more to do with education around there. I really think it's just doing more of what I've already been doing,
right?
But just doing it more efficiently, doing it with probably a more focus as well too. Like you start learning that, you should learn this probably earlier, but like, learning for me is, hey, let's just kind of focus on this group and do the best that I can for this group before kind of moving on to the next one, right? But I'm actually, narrowing things down.
Okay.
Because as you get older, the truth is you have less energy. I mean, you just have less energy,
right.
Right? One, you have less energy. And then the second thing is that, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day, and just kind of pertains to it, is that here's what I'm trying to do. Okay. Right. I'm trying to create the least amount of stress in my life.
Okay.
I'm trying to have the least amount of stress in my life. And the reason why is because when I have less stress, I become more of who I am. More of the wonderfulness of myself comes out when I have less stress.
I agree.
And I think that's pretty it's okay, right?
I agree.
So everyone's intent should be to have the least amount of stress in their life, right?
Yes.
Well, the thing is that, you always hear of people talking about how grateful they are of things, okay, right? And maybe I just want to tell you this because I think it's important. I don't know how it relates, and they're always like grateful. Oh, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my relationship with my sister. I'm grateful for the fact that I've saved money and I have resources. I'm grateful that I've got a great education. I'm great. Do all this gratefulness, right? I literally think that's absolutely pointless unless you are able to leverage those things that you are grateful for to have less stress. So let me give an example, okay. Right? So one of the things that I'm grateful for is that I've had some success in my life that has allowed me to have some resources where I don't have to worry so much about the future. Okay. Right? Okay. So let's say that the product doesn't come in on time. So I'm going to be on back order for a month and a half and sales are going to be, down the floor. Okay. Right. Well, I could stress out about that.
Right.
Or I could say, listen, if it comes in, it comes in. If it doesn't, it doesn't. My life's not going to be, my future's not based on the fact of whether the company's even successful.
Right.
Because I'm fortunate to have the resources that if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If somebody says, oh, hey, listen, you know what? This person doesn't like you. They said that. I could say, oh, you know what? You may not like me, but my sister likes me.
Right.
My friend Brian likes me.
Right.
I'm saying, well, you're grateful for those things, but if you don't leverage them into something that allows you to have less stress, what's the use of being grateful for that?
Right.
And that's what happens to people. They sit there and they're so grateful about things, yet they stress out about all these things that could literally be remedied from the fact that you've got stuff that you have.
Right.
That you're constantly reminding yourself that you're grateful for.
Right.
Okay, right? And so the reason why I'm telling you all that is that if there was one goal that I'm going for, it's to have the least amount of stress so I can do more of my best work. And I can do it in the way that makes me feel joyful, not happy.
Right.
Happy is an instant.
That's true.
Something can make you happy one day, makes you not happy the next day, but when you're joyful, that's an internal fire that can't be extinguished.
This is true. I agree.
So therefore, why wouldn't I want to be in the most joyful state all the time? One of the ways for me to do that is be doing my best work.
Right.
And doing my best work means that I have to get rid of any stresses.
That takes away from your joyfulness.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm like not stressed.
No,
I'm not bothered by the fact that the product's not going to come in for a month and a half. And I'm not frustrated and I'm not disappointed.
Right.
But it's not going to change the way that I'm going to behave to someone, which is usually what stress does.
Correct.
Or it's going to cause me some sort of internal havoc that's going to suppress my immune system, make me feel tired and fatigued, make me not feel positive about life and what I'm doing. That's when stress becomes a problem.
Right. I agree. So I hear everything that you're saying and 100% agree because I'm a joyful person and trying to eliminate a lot of stress in my life. But for those people that don't have the focus that you have right now, for the people that, what we can talk about the wellness industry and how there is such a promotion of $1 billion industry and so many different things are misunderstood based on this product is going to do this for you rather than the education that you're talking about to make you whole, to make you better. So there's that distraction. For people who can take this conversation and relate it to where they are, what kind of focus can you help someone create to where, they are grateful, they don't have the resources? How do they develop the focus to still be passionate about whatever they're passionate about?
Yeah, I think, listen, you got to start by loving yourself. I mean, I love me.
I know that.
I don't, right, girlfriend? Like, I don't like me. I love me.
That's awesome.
And loving you doesn't cost anything.
That's right.
You don't have to properly dose it. You don't have to remind yourself to take it in the morning. You don't have to buy, spend money on it.
So
and you know what? None of those things, whether it be, nutritional or whether it be from a supplement end, whether it be, some hyperbaric this or some IV that or whatever, it does not trump the energy that you put in yourself. And actually, a lot of those things don't even work if you don't put the positive energy that only you can create into yourself. If you think you can go to a Tony Robbins seminar and get all excited about who you are and where you're going or whatever, then you're fooling yourself.
Right.
It might start. It might help you to realize that you're not alone. And I like that. I like those places in which people are saying, hey, it's okay. The way that you're feeling, you're not alone. There's other people that look like you, that act like you, that have, right? And even people that you might have, admired or, put on a pedestal higher than you. That are feeling the same way. That's why I love those things. But then when you're home and the lights are off and it's time to go to bed and it's dark and you're just by yourself, like you got to get with it and say, okay, I am going to love myself. And when I love myself, what do you end up doing? You end up caring for yourself
Right.
in the most ultimate way. So, I mean, and that's where it all starts, so that whatever you do, whether you drink water, take a walk outside, breathe fresh air, whatever, right? It's going to do great things for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think, that's where it really all starts,
Do you think that we'll get the message to take care of ourselves in our communities, in the way things are going, and how, produce and just all of the different things that are going on health-wise, immunizations, just all of the diseases, everything. Do you think that we'll get the message to really take a lesson to really take care of ourselves?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because, I know other people are really positive, oh yeah, sure. Listen, this stuff wasn't not going on.
Right, exactly.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. The thing, and the reason why it is difficult is because it's the fault of the body. And what I mean by that is that the body is so resilient. And the resiliency is great because it allows you to take on a lot of stress.
Right.
And it allows you to, put on a lot of pressure and beat you down and still make it. But the problem with resiliency is that it allows you to do those things.
Right.
So then you don't, you're not reminded by how vulnerable you actually are, how fragile that you really are. This is why people get all healthy after they have some sort of health issue,
Yeah, it
right?
allows them to another level of health.
Because then it's their first realization that their body is fragile,
Right.
Absolutely. But up until then, it was somebody else's problem.
Right, exactly.
It's like I always say, people will say, gosh, Jeevers, you do a lot of healthy things for yourself. That's awesome. That's great. That's what. No, it's not. My life has been set up so to make me consistently aware of how fragile my body is. So unfortunately, you don't get to see that. See, I do. Every day I go to work, and at least I'm going to find 2 or 3 people who are going to tell me about how fragile their body was and, how they've been helped. But who cares about that? How fragile, which reminds me. Oh, wow, gosh, this guy was 42 years old.
Yeah.
Like, he's actually younger than I am. And then he ended up getting, long haul COVID, and he couldn't shake these symptoms. And, wow, that's this gal's, 68 years old. Like, she was doing just great. And all of a sudden she had cancer. It's like I'm reminded, oh, yeah, the body's. A lot of people don't get to see those sort of things or hear those sort of things. And so they don't know anything but their experience. That's one thing. And then from that, I've created a mindset, and this is kind of interesting, where I'm not special. The difference, and I always say this from stage, the difference between me and you is that you think you're special. You think that when you see a stat that says, hey, 2 out of 3 individuals are going to get cancer, you know what you think? Hey, I'm that one person. You know what I think? I'm one of those 2.
Right.
So because I have fooled myself, it doesn't, it's not a depressing thing. It's just a mindset thing.
It's an awareness.
That I'm going to be one of those 2. What I say is okay, I'm going to put my body in the best possible position so that when that does occur, that I've got all of the defenses to be able to overcome that.
Wow.
That's how successful people think.
That's good.
That's how people that we're not paranoid.
Right.
You use the word paranoia. We use the word protection.
Right.
We say we protect ourselves
Right.
against the catastrophes that are inevitable to come. They may not come at the same degree
Right.
as others, but they're coming.
Yeah. The awareness of what you're doing. That's awesome.
Like, you don't think you're going to have some cell that doesn't properly replicate? That is called cancer.
Right.
You don't think that there's going to be some shred of the insulation around a nerve that doesn't properly form or get denatured? That's called Parkinson's. You don't think that there's some sort of blood vessel right now that just has a little nick in it? That's called cardiovascular disease. It's there. Now, it may not manifest itself
Right.
into something like a heart attack or the symptoms of Parkinson's, the shaking and all that sort of stuff, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the awareness that makes it, the knowledge, and knowledge is powerful. It's the knowledge and the time that we spend being aware of our bodies. I mean, you're just in an industry that it's made known to you what these ailments these people have, and people walking around don't think about what it could happen. And you're absolutely right. I know before I had the accident, I didn't even understand the functions of how my body worked. I mean, my bones and how I needed to appreciate them. And I'm so grateful because right after I had the accident, you provided me with some products, and I brought one of them today. It's called Nerve right here.
Yeah.
And just life-changing products that were allowing me to alleviate a lot of the symptoms of the pain that I was feeling. There was, what's the product when I was sleeping with? What's that
NODs.
NODs my husband was giving me, sprays of the NODs to make sure I was able to sleep well.
Yeah.
These products made a difference, and you're absolutely right. We're not conscientious to think about how our body performs, how we need to be responsible and accountable for what we're eating, what we're doing, how we're moving. You're absolutely right. I mean, if that is anything that anybody can get from listening to this episode, my goodness, take that and run with it, because I don't think our societies are going to get any better, but we can individually take the steps to make the difference for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to continue to give out. And that's what your products do. I mean, they really are. I mean, I joke and call you our scientists, but we go to you if we have some issue that comes up that we don't know about, because we know you've done the research and you spent the time doing what it takes in order to help make other people better.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk to you for hours, but I don't want to keep you. And I mean, we know we have other things to do, and I probably have a list of things I need to go over with you anyway to
Great.
make sure that I'm doing well. So grateful for your time of coming and talking. And, it's always good to talk to someone in your life that makes a difference by their example. So I commend you you've been the same person throughout these 30, 20 years that I've known you, not 30, 20 years that I've known you, that you've always led with the joyfulness of who you are and how you are. And I always think, wow, he has so many friends, but I'm not sure if you have so many friends or you just touch so many lives that you were friendly with. And I mean, I think it's just a great example. So we're grateful to you and our little family about what you've done. And I know there's so many people that feel better because of the products that you championed in their lives to make a difference. And I've seen your gratefulness go beyond just being grateful for what's around you, but really sewing into different causes and things that make a difference in other communities. So I appreciate you. So grateful for you being here. All of my guests, regardless of anything, they always get an opportunity to ask me a question if you have one, because I don't want this just to be an interview. I'd love for it just to be a conversation. So I give you an opportunity. If there's a question that you have for me, feel free to ask it.
Yes, I have.
Oh, you do have a question?
Definitely. Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Up.
So one of the things that I've always admired with you and Freddie is your family.
Aww.
And just being able to, every time I'm on Instagram, I see the amazing accomplishments of the family.
Okay.
And so what would you say is, not the top, just one of the things that kind of comes to mind now that looking back on how you've been able to, raise these kids and build this family, they've had the success. Is there one thing that you'd say, you know what? I'm really glad that we did this one thing with the family unit, because I feel like it's made the difference in having them so accomplished now.
Yes. So there are many things.
Okay.
The first thing that comes to heart is for them to establish their own relationship with God. Freddie and I moved out of the way, so we knew and understand that in the world, I never wanted our children to feel like they were by themselves or holding on to us as far as their source. We wanted to be a resource for them. So them having their own relationship with God was essential so that they knew no matter what, that he was going to be there for them and they would continue to grow and develop that relationship themselves. So that was the number one thing that I think that we did. Another thing is that we taught them to be individuals. Like we have a certain way that we are as far as us and coming together as a couple, but we believe in them as an individual. So we always wanted to make sure that they were heard and that they were seen with what they wanted to do and how they felt. And us doing that allowed us to form these individuals that were powerful because they didn't care if they were right or wrong, but they knew they had a voice to be heard. And they knew that they were seen based on what they wanted to do. So those were the top two things I think that we did with them that allowed us to learn from them. I think a lot of times when we develop families or we have a family, and this is for your family planning, if we,
that's why I asked.
one of the main things that we always wanted to make sure that they knew is that we believed in them more than anybody could, and that what they hoped was right with what we were saying about them, we knew to be true. So we just want them to become full individuals that like a certain thing, and they're all completely different, but they are all so wonderful because they really do teach us about how we are. Because it's Freddie and I coming together to create another individual that's going to exceed everything that we've done. We expect the greatness in them that's going to come out, and it's not a competition. It's a gift to be able to have this little person or big person come into our lives and just watch them develop beyond our greatest imagination of who we are. So I guess those are the three things that we really did in order to instill that. And, we really like our kids. We've always liked them. There was a level of respect that we expected from them, but we really, really cultivated them being everything that we weren't and everything that we are. So that's what we did for our kids. And, they're just some of the best people that we know. And I think each and every one of them feel that level of love that no matter what goes on in their life, they know they can come back to our family and get what they need. So that's our family.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That's
welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
I'll be here if you need any other tips as you found your family.
Yes, you.
That's good.
I will be coming to you.
So good. Yeah. Well, we love you and really so appreciate you and just who you are, not just all of what you do. I mean, it's just fascinating to have someone, a part of your family, that has the skills and abilities that you have, because I think it's even beyond you what you're able to do and who you've helped. I think there'll come a point in time when you get to heaven, you'll be able to see all these people that you helped that you didn't know, but that you were an aid, a resource, a light in the midst of their feeling something that wasn't right for their bodies. So thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, this has been a great conversation. We always want to make sure that your experience matters. Whether you have good things that go on or things that are not so good, they're all the things that make the wisdom in your life and that can make a difference for yourself and for others. We're so glad that you were here today. We're so glad you're listening, and we can't wait to see you next time.